The boys are back in Northport, and the vibes, they are immaculate. Yes, welcome on into Braves Today for Friday, February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day to y'all. And if you're like me, you love baseball. So I'm going to dispense with all the normal introductory stuff and just say, if you love baseball, this is the best time of year. I brought on the best resource for this time of year. I am joined by Justin Toscano, beat writer for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, all around good guy, down in Northport. Just there to check out what's going on with the Braves. Justin, welcome into the show. Excited to have you on.
Yeah, excited to be here, Lindsay. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. And I think this is I gotta have Braves PR dig through like the true media stuff, but I think this is the first time two gluten-free dudes have done a Braves podcast. So I think this is it's we're breaking barriers here in terms of like the gluten-free community.
Listen, it's this is the only Braves podcast with two celiacs talking Braves. If you are in both
Ah,
of those specific niches, we have you covered. The Braves PR staff can do a lot of amazing research. I'll be shocked if they have this, but they've surprised me before. Um,
yeah.
Quick side note while you're here, wildest stat you ever saw from them. I'll let you think about it because mine was
Oh,
they knew how many errors CJ Abrams had committed against the Braves and how it was like over half of his career errors came against
that's
Atlanta
pretty
because he's an
good.
Atlanta kid. So that was a
Yeah,
great
that's
stat
pretty
they had.
good. That was pretty good. You know what? I love cumulative like streaks. So for
Mhm.
example, like I guess I could take by hand the amount of the amount of straight quality starts or something like that. But the very niche one last year was like 29. It was like 30 straight starts of like under 3 earned runs, which is just ridiculous. And like you're kind of going through in baseball, like it feels so every day. I loved that one. I also like the barrage of home run stats in 2023, particularly the hey, there's only been two teams with five guys who have 30 plus home runs or what. Like I just thought that was cool. I can look that up. You can look that up yourself on reference and stat head and whatnot. But that I think like those are pretty cool. Um, I also like here's the team's record when Jimenez, Johnson, and Iggy have pitched in a game. At one point last year, it was like
That was
seven
fun.
and 0 or 8-0 or something. I like those that I could definitely like maybe do on my own, but that I don't think of. They've had a lot of good ones. I will say that the Braves, those guys ball out like Jared Burleson, Franco Garcia, Mitch George, like um Jeff Lombardi, those dudes ball out on their game notes. And we go, this is getting way off topic of why people are tuning in. I'm sorry. But we go like around the country every year. I'm telling you, like these game notes are among the best in baseball. And some teams, like they only have one little page and then the player stats. Like these dudes, these dudes are good. Franco had a good one last year for the overall starting pitcher stats. It was like the Braves had two guys on last year's roster that threw the final pitch of the World Series and were opening day starters. Um, it was Chris Sale and Charlie Morton. So it was, like those two guys. That was a cool one. I don't know, man. I geek out over that stuff. Sometimes it's not usable for what I'm doing that day, but like, or I don't need it. But man, like they do get a lot of things that you can just like actually use, which I appreciate.
Yeah, it makes it fun because, like you said, you don't always think of those things, but it's just great stats, super useful for stuff. So the big thing everybody's wanted to know, you've been
Yeah.
in Northport the last 2 days. The clubhouse has been open Wednesday and Thursday. What have kind of like what's been your big observation and takeaway from talking to the guys on the roster? Because the whole team's already there. I mean, just about everybody's
Yeah.
reported, but what's been your big takeaway of talking to these guys about the upcoming season?
It feels more low key through 2 days. And I don't think I'm a very big proponent of please be honest to the media because I am in the media. Shocker. But
Don't lie to
I
people.
don't think that AJ Minter was in the wrong last year or anything, but I do think it's funny that guys have avoided saying World Series or bust after the baseball gods played a pretty cruel joke on them last year after they did say World Series or bust. And I think it's like right, like that's what the mindset should be. Like AJ didn't say anything inflammatory, but I do think it's funny how Matt Olson laughed at that. Austin Riley was like, no statements. Like the motto's just gonna be just stay healthy. And then like some other guys have just kind of downplayed that. And I think it's felt low key, Lindsay, because Charlie Morton, not a loud voice, but
Right.
certainly a commanding presence in terms of being respected. Max Fried, a commanding presence. Travis Darno, a voice and a commanding presence. Sal
Mhm.
Fasano, from the coaching staff, commanding presence. You had this like one area of the clubhouse, the corner of the clubhouse, where they would always just chat baseball. Sale, Darno, Fried, Sal, Murph, like they'd all pull up a chair. It feels different this year, like in terms of, and I think it's only because the guys that aren't there, it's like the first time in a couple years that it's felt like a little bit different of a roster. Like they still have most of the same guys, but yeah, you don't. It feels just a little bit different because, like, yeah, even to his credit, AJ Minter was like a good personality to have around, funny dude, uh, and it feels like this team. Maybe this. I hope this isn't too much of my own mind creeping in here, but it feels like they're flying on the radar more, and so it's felt a little quieter the first 2 days than usual, I think, because I think the last couple years, it's like they've had great odds to win the World Series. This year, they've got the second best odds, but the Dodgers are, the talk of the town. The Mets and Soto are the talk of the town, in baseball. It's felt a little lower key.
Yeah, and I think losing 25 years of experience, if I did my math right, on all those different guys,
Yeah,
can kind of change the vibe of a clubhouse a little bit.
right.
But I do think it kind of was that perfect storm last year, right? You had all the injuries, the underperformance from just about everybody, not named Marcell Ozuna and Chris Sale, and then seeing those guys leave in the offseason without a lot of big names coming in to replace them. And I think a lot of the fans, like a lot of the listeners of this show, viewers of the show, who have reached out and talked about it have said, like, we feel like the Braves have lost a lot of stuff and they haven't really added. Have you gotten the sense that, like, yes, they miss the guys, but do they think that there's enough pieces still remaining on the roster to deserve that second best odds of the World Series, or is everybody kind of looking around for help? Loaded
Yeah,
question.
I think they genuinely believe they have enough. But I definitely do think there's an ounce of reality in here somewhere, right? And what I
Mhm.
mean by that is at one point yesterday, so Wednesday, the first day of access, Matt Olson goes, look, everybody likes the shiny new toys and, all these things, but guys who have track records are valuable. And he's like, so bringing in guys like De La Cruz and Cooper and like, that's kind of like, and I know, Matt, he's just talking to the media like he didn't mean, anything by it or anything, but you kind of hear that and you're like, man, like the Braves really didn't do that much if that's who who we're excited about here in camp. And those two could be great because they do have track records. They've done it a little bit in the big leagues.
Mhm.
My point being that I think there's an obvious sense among guys that look, the lineup's back. They got their whole lineup back. But Chris Sale said, our lineup's back and healthy. Rotation's still good, and we got guys in Gwinnett that can come in and step up. He's like, bullpen's basically the same guys. Not to pick at what he said, but bullpen is not the same guys. And
Not.
I think everybody kind of knows that. Snit on Thursday kind of professed some faith in who they have, internal options on the 40, and then, non-roster guys in terms of guys like Jake Diekman. He likes Daisbel Hernandez, Pierce Johnson, of course. I think it's a little bit of both. Like, I think, of course, they think they have enough because, look, you do look at this team and they've got enough. I don't want to
Mhm.
disenfranchise fans because I know, yeah, like of course, as a fan, this team lost a ton and didn't really add much. So, like, I get that. Yeah, if you're adding and subtracting, the math is going to come out maybe a little on the negative side there. I do think they have a great roster, so they think that they have the chance to win it all, and I genuinely think they believe that. But I think if you were to stab them with truth serum, I think a lot of, I think some players would be like looking around the room like, okay, like, still got a great team, but we might miss those guys, just because those guys were such staples, especially a guy like Darno, especially a guy like Freed. Charlie, for all every fan on social media talked about him, was a 40-year-old guy who could give you like a 4 ERA at worst. So,
And
I mean,
30
I think
starts.
there's a, yeah, exactly. And I think you lose 59 starts between Max and Charlie. I think you start to wonder a little bit. So I think it's a little bit of both. I haven't sensed any of the guys being like, oh, this team's not that good. I just mean we all see it, right? Like we all
Yeah.
see that there's some pieces that aren't back.
Shameless plug, real quick, for the channel. This week on the show, we've talked about all these relievers Justin mentioned that Snit talked about. And if you go to the YouTube channel on Thursday afternoon, we uploaded that media availability from Snit talking about those guys and some of his thoughts and things like that. So go check that out on the YouTube channel. When we come back in just a second, I want to talk about the rotation. You touched on it a little bit, lost a lot of guys. What does it look like as we get started in spring? We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby talking to Justin Toscano of the AJC about what he's seeing down in Northport the last couple of days. And Justin, you touched on it there in the last segment. Charlie Morton out the door, Max Fried out the door. Spencer Strider is coming back, right? He's throwing in spring. But like, does it feel like the Braves have enough starters, I guess, in general, and then enough quality starters for the postseason? Because it feels like every year you've needed 10 to 13 guys in the season, and then you've been missing somebody when October rolled around.
I know that's the one thing is I like the upside of Ian Anderson coming back from injury and what we saw from Grant Holmes last year. But I'm going to be honest with you, like when that opening day roster comes out and Anderson, Holmes are the 4 and 5, like you're going to wonder a little bit how it's going to hold up, right? Like that's just reality because those guys don't have long track records. I think there's enough though this season because shoot, we said this last year, and it was an issue for a little bit, but I think you've got AJ Smith-Shawver. I don't think Bryce Elder's the worst option in the world. Like he's shown he can do it before and be capable slash serviceable. I wonder about a guy like Drew Hackenberg eventually. And I think I'm counting on Spencer Schwellenbach, even if he doesn't take a huge jump, just being like what we think he is. Like I think he is what we think because I saw him pitch live against very good teams and it wasn't a fluke. I think they've got enough solely because of the top there. Like I think you're going to look at Sale, Strider, Sale if you can keep him healthy, Strider, Lopez. I like those guys, Schwellenbach. Like it's going to be a good top 4. And I think if I'm a Braves fan, what I put, like I get to be around these guys and the stock I would put in is I'm not sure I've ever covered somebody who's more meticulous than Strider. Like I know a lot of people are wondering, is he going to be the same guy when he's back? Like, geez, people might clip this and I might be wrong in 4 months, or maybe he has a rough year, but he's so talented, but he also has the mentality and like the attitude and the mindset and the want to and the will and the one of the guys who just doesn't make excuses. He just wants to go out and shove. I put a lot of stock into that, so I honestly think the Braves are going to be getting another number 1, a few weeks after the season starts because I do put a lot of stock in what I've seen from Spencer, not only like on the mound, but just like his makeup and just who he is and his ability to bounce back from these things and his ability to reinvent and adapt when he needs to and the way he thinks about things. I think there's enough with Lopez. Do I think he's going to repeat? No, I don't think so. And I wonder if there'll be an injury in there somewhere because he had a couple scares last year. Sale, man, like if he could stay healthy again, that would be terrific. But yeah, again, to your point, they were missing him come October. I think what I'm pointing to here on this long cul-de-sac I've gone on is they're going to add somebody, whether
Right.
it's now or at the deadline. It feels like the deadline, like it feels like you can get through, but they're going to need to add somebody, right? Because that's been the big takeaway from the last couple years is well, last year it was game 1, but the previous couple years before that, it's like who pitches game 3, and then in game 3 they go out and get rocked, and so it's like in Philly, and so I think they've got to add somebody else. I'm surprised they haven't to this point, but I'd be really really surprised if they didn't at the deadline, and the reason being the deadline is that you kind of want to preserve your depth, and with Holmes and Ian being out of options, it's perfect to just kind of start those guys in the rotation and then save yourself the flexibility after that, in my opinion.
Yeah, a lot of this offseason has felt like we have a ton of depth. We're going to give these guys a chance to see if they can be MLB caliber guys, knowing we have the flexibility later. And the fact that they haven't gotten to the point of getting into the CBT is a bonus. Ideally, if everybody works out, you don't have to add, then you reset that. But AA said they're fine if they go into it. They don't really care about going into it or resetting it or whatever. And just they have enough, they feel like, to start off. To your point, some point in time, they're going to add, because you can always do that. And the list of expiring contracts for starters this year is impressive. Now, some of those teams will be in it, right? The Diamondbacks may not move Gallen, but so many guys are on expiring deals and could be available that all you have to do is just get to the postseason and it's a whole different animal. And they have enough pieces. It's just, does enough of the top still stick around in October?
Yeah, totally. And I think to your point there, what I would not even counter with, but just add is baseball's a really funny game where the team that won the World Series, the most recent Braves team to win the World Series, literally cobbled it together in the postseason. Like I wasn't on the beat
Yeah.
at that time, but I remember watching those games and I'm just like, I would get the notifications or, you're on Twitter and you follow the writers. And I like, it's like, oh, Braves are going to the bullpen game they're going with Dylan Lee for this game, or they're going with Ian Anderson here. And Ian Anderson comes up in 2020 and just apparently never allows a run in the postseason ever. Like it's just so there's a lot of different ways to skin that cat. And we saw the
Mm-hmm.
Dodgers do it last year, right? Where the Dodgers found a way with a great bullpen. I think the Braves have some components of a great bullpen. I would have liked to have seen Tanner Scott in Atlanta. I think that would have really, really made a difference. Um, but my point is that I think the lineup's honestly good enough to sustain if they have, because you hope you have Strider, Sale, and Lopez and
Right.
Schwellenbach, and you hope out of those four, three of them are healthy for October. And let's be honest, like, and this isn't anything against you know this guy, but one of the guys with the issues the last couple years like isn't here anymore. And Max Fried, he had a couple kind of like weird things, that have that were kind of random. I know
Yeah.
Sale had a random thing. That's nothing against Max. I just mean these could be different situations, especially because we saw Lopez, kind of come back toward the end of the year last year. I I think the Braves could have enough, and I think the key, Lindsay, is you have to have Smith Shaver, Ian Holmes as like your number three, number four, not like starting game one. Like they cannot be in a position this year where they're like gonna do the wild card because they need to be able to stack their pitching. That just kind of
Yeah.
tanked them last year.
AA actually mentioned that after the season. He talked about it took us so long to get in that we just had to run with whoever was available. And I remember, I think it was Smith Shaver wasn't even on the first postseason roster because he had thrown a couple of days before. So it's like that
Right.
was, to your point, that's the big issue. But you also kind of mentioned, I think the lineup is ultimately like the rotation was great last year. The pitching staff as a whole was great last year. One of the best ERAs in baseball as a staff. The bullpen was great. The rotation was great. But it feels like the ability of this team to win the World Series is going to be based on that lineup. And if you think back to 2021, we all think about the Jorge Soler home run. Like that's what we think about. It's the offense that carried them there. Adding Jerks and Profar to what was already in 23 the best offense I've ever seen, and in 24 still good enough to get in the postseason. Is Profar, you think, enough to make up for um, possibly seeing a step back from the rotation? Is adding him to a fully healthy lineup with a Ronald Acuna Jr., with a Austin Riley, enough for Atlanta?
If at least four or five of the guys are producing over their levels or near their levels, I think so. Because and obviously you're never gonna have all nine going at the same time, which is why I say four or five. I like and here's the thing, like one thing that stood out to me last year, that, at times was kind of nauseating to watch was runners on second and third, no outs. Guy goes up and swings at the first pitch, like things like that. It's like,
Yeah.
you pop out in foul territory and you're kind of looking, it's like, I could never do that job. These players are the best in the world, but you're like, man, like you can't, you'd love to get in Snit's mind in that moment or Kevin Seitzer at the time's mind in that moment. And I think Profar's a guy, the OBP is going to be the big number there. Like if
Mm-hmm.
if that's what he adds, like I don't even specifically need him to hit 20 home runs for the Braves. I'm fine with 15. If I'm a Braves fan, I'm fine with 15. And if he just gives me something around that 380 OBP, 370, 360, if he's getting on base, eh, I think it really, really moves the line a lot more and lengthens the lineup. I asked Chris Sale yesterday, and the way I phrased it to him was I feel like baseball people, like you've heard baseball people say, like somebody makes things happen. And you can't
Right.
really like quantify it, but I feel like Profar is one of those guys where every time you're watching a game he's playing, like he's scurrying around the bases. He's not even that fast, but he's like twitchy and he's scurrying around the bases, or he's making something happen, or he bunts, or he, lines one, through the right side, or slap hits one, down the left field line, or something like that. It's like it doesn't always have to be pretty. And I asked Chris Sale, like, what is it about facing that guy that makes him so tough? And he was like, he never gives up an at bat. He was like, that guy will fight you. Like he's like he does weird things, like you can't prepare for it. He gets like, obviously defenses are off guard because he'll like steal bases. He'll run around. I mean, he's not a burner, but he'll run around the bases. He'll steal. Uh, he just always seems like he's doing something. I think this lineup needed a sort of a havoc wreaker, right? Because there's a
Right.
lot of similar profiled guys in this lineup with Riley, Olson, Ozuna. I think these guys needed a kind of a little, he's not fast, but like just a twitchy, good athlete, in terms of more athleticism and OBP ability, switch hit, gives Snit a lot of options there.
Mhm.
I think it's enough. And that's the one thing, like I know everybody was clamoring for shortstop. I get their reasoning there that if the lineup functions near how it should, Orlando Arcia bats ninth, and that's not an issue. And his defense is great, got a great arm, great hands. They love his defense. He's cheap, like that. That all works out. So I think Profar's enough. Like, could they have gone bigger? Sure. Like I certainly think so. Like the Profar contract is a little bit of a gamble. I wouldn't say 42 million over 3 years is that much, especially
Right.
because the Braves bring in so much money. I'm just saying that commitment in the years. Yeah, it's a little bit of a gamble for a guy who doesn't have a huge track record, but I I like the idea and I like the profile of that guy on this team because I'm not sure that that guy on this team exists outside of an Acuna, in terms of making things like that happen.
Yeah. I want to get to kind of Profar's fit in that lineup and maybe where he might be. We'll do that in just a second, right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby talking to Justin Toscano of the AJC. And the whole question, like, obviously, the Braves haven't indicated what they want to do here as far as anything definitive. Snit has said he could see Profar batting everywhere in the lineup. If you were the manager of the Atlanta Braves, where does it make sense before Ronald Acuna Jr. is back to slot Jurickson Profar? Because something that I've kind of dealt with and thought about is I like the idea of him batting second. And so maybe I have him in the two hole all year. Let Michael Harris lead off, and then when Ronald's back, Ronald goes back into that leadoff spot, and Profar can just sit in one place and produce all season. Have you kind of thought about what would be the ideal scenario for Profar in the lineup?
Yeah, well, I know Brian Snitker said yet, on Wednesday that leadoff could even be an option because with San Diego, he produced there.
Mhm.
I tend to think the two hole as well, though, because and that's kind of where I lean because I think Michael Harris did well enough for you leading off last year on the times he's had to do it, where I think I kind of want to see Mike up there. I like that. I like his speed up there. I like having some power, up there, some more power and some pop in that bat. And I think he's done well enough with the role that I probably would just slot Profar in it too. Like because I just think you've got so many great hitters. And I think like San Diego last year was a different example where yeah, they had like good hitters in terms of Tatis, Machado, but they didn't really have the sluggers the Braves have, like across the
Mhm.
board. And I think because you have so many of those bona fide guys who could be like perennial all-stars in this lineup, I think two, because where I'm going with that is I like having the OBP there for the guys coming behind him. I like his ability to perhaps make something happen for Mike or Ronald, whoever comes before him. But yeah, I like kind of what you said in terms of sitting him there, letting him produce, letting him get comfortable there. I just think it's the best fit because it's been Ozzy, in the past, but I think
Mhm.
Profar is probably going to give you a more patient at bat sometimes, and I think that could be good. So Man, I think all along I've kind of seen the two hole, and I think I don't really know why. I just feel like that's kind of where he fits in terms of maybe it's just last year, like it really moved the line for the Padres. It seemed like to get to those guys after him, and he's got some power. He can drive in the leadoff guy. He makes enough happen where Acuna's not gonna have to steal bases all the time. Like you can keep Ronald off his legs a little bit. I like him at two.
Yeah, it just makes a ton of sense, and I feel like it's knowing how much Snit doesn't like to change the lineup if he can help it, right? Just running the same
Yeah,
8 guys in the same 8 spots every
right.
single day, and maybe your left field platoon like you had in 23 and things like that. It just makes sense. Put him there, leave him there once Ronald comes back. And to your point, he can help out both Ronald ahead of him or Michael Harrison ahead of him. And then the high on base helps you with Riley and Olsen and Ozuna and all those guys behind him. Um, Before we get out of here, I want to real quick, I guess 2 things. One, you've been covering Major League Baseball for a while now. I want to kind of a little bit of your experience in baseball, but a little bit selfishly, right? Because we're both gluten free, we're both celiac. We can't have a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
outside food. And by the way, Justin has a great project going on Instagram. If you're one of the probably 20 gluten free Braves fans,
Oh
gluten free with JT, right? I think that's
yeah.
the handle. But you've been to every ballpark now, I believe. Best food you've had on the road so far, and I guess best gluten-free food you've had on the road.
Yeah, so my entire time in baseball, I my first ever beat was like I was an intern at MLB.com covering the D-backs in 18,
Mhm.
and then I covered the Mets in 19, kind of mid-season there after my first gig. I've been gluten-free like all the time I've covered, but I was diagnosed in 2017, so I have a lot more experience now. Whereas when I was covering the D-backs, I used to have to bring my own food, and it was just such a pain because you're like cooking 2 meals before you even leave for work, and like you got to
Yeah.
go for the clubhouse. And so, okay, I'm gonna how long can I go here? Like I'm trying to think through this, man. I
Buddy, this is
so
my show. You have as much time as you want.
let's go. That
It is
that
fine.
all my dream in podcasting has been for somebody to tell me that you have as much time as you want. I like to chop it up. I like to talk.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Mets have a freaking great place called World. I think it's not World Market. That's a store. It's like something Taste of Corona or Corona Taste of Queens or something like that. And it's in
Mhm.
the right field corner. So they have gluten-free burgers, like hot dogs, chicken tenders, fries. They just added these gluten-free buffalo chicken quesadillas a couple years ago, and dude, they
Really?
are like those are incredible. Philly does it up big, man. So Philly's got their own gluten-free section, like own gluten-free stand, in the
Really?
concessions, and that includes gluten-free cheesesteaks. And for anybody looking for a good gluten-free cheesesteak outside the ballpark, Campo's is my spot.
Right.
Mia there is awesome. I've known Mia for years. She knows me as, oh, you're here with the Braves. I've known her since my Mets days, though. I know they catered the Braves food once, maybe multiple times, but I go to Campos probably like every day in Philly because I love it there. It's awesome. Their gluten-free bread is actually good. So that's good. I'm trying to go through like the different cities. I'm trying to think of like the
While you're
best
thinking about
gluten-free
it,
meal I had.
side note real quick, do you think the whole thing where all the opposing players try to set the new Philly cheesesteak record in Philly is somewhat of an advantage for Philly baseball because they're giving them that food in the clubhouse every day?
Oh, gotta be. Because if you're like, they're not gonna say it, but I mean, could you run and play after eating cheesesteaks? I mean, these guys are. I couldn't. I mean, I couldn't go work out after eating a cheesesteak. I mean, I make sure that's for after my workouts. Um, Man, there's a lot of good. So my last one that I'll check off this
Yeah.
season is Toronto. So I've been to 29 of 30. My brother graduated college their last Toronto trip back in 23, so I didn't go on that one.
Oh, dang.
I think Coors Field has low key like amazing gluten-free burgers at that stand,
Yeah.
like amazing gluten-free burgers.
That's a Colorado thing in general. They're really good with gluten-free food.
Yes, yeah. Okay. I'm gonna have to give you so my favorite San Diego is pretty good too, pretty
Yeah.
decent. Uh San Francisco, man, the land of the gluten-free vegetarians, like whatever diet you can find. They've got this flatbread there out behind center field. they call it a flatbread. It's more of like an actual pizza. Dude, it is to die for. Like I'm telling you, like this thing, I'm telling you, man, I'm telling you, they put it on a plate, they put some greens on it, like arugula
Mhm.
and stuff, and they put olive oil on that. Like I'm telling you, I know it just sounds like a flatbread. It is incredible. Like I don't know what it is. Like the pepperonis are great. I don't know what it is, but the flavors are just unreal. So San Francisco is good, and they've also got this place called Starbird in San Francisco, like the city and in the airport. That's got like gluten-free chicken tenders, like actual chicken tenders, not like
Right.
cauliflower. And dude, I don't. Yeah, I'm going through all these things, but you know how it is. So you were down for spring training last year. The problem you and I have is that when it comes to spring training, what can we have? Like ballpark nachos, maybe at a
You
given
had a
ballpark.
giant like garbage plate of nachos
Oh,
that
that's
last day
right.
you were there before you left, just destroying
Yeah.
that thing in the press box.
Yeah.
It's like
So
all you can do. It's that
I
really.
yeah, is that and like and even that's kind of taking a chance a little bit. Like
You never
I
know
don't
what's
really
in
take a
something.
ton of
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I don't really take a ton of chances, even though I was diagnosed a while back. Man, there's some good ones throughout the league. I'm trying to go through my head. I think those ones I mentioned, Philly, the Mets,
Boston's
the
doing a
yeah,
celiac awareness on May 17th. First time ever. Braves are in town for that.
that is going to be incredible. So I actually think my buddy's bachelor party is that weekend, so Gabe Burns is getting that trip. Oh, dang. But they have a good gluten-free stand,
Yeah.
burgers, like all that stuff. Boston's really, really good at that. Uh, you know who's awful at it? The Braves. Awful.
Atlanta, it's not, there's that one
Terrible.
stand in center field and it's all cold stuff,
Te-
like
terrible.
salads.
It's terrible. Atlanta's a hip enough city and like market in turn like food wise that there's like enough foodies there and like people who like food there that like you think we could get good gluten-free food. Can't.
No.
Can't. So you got to go to 26 Thai out in the Battery at
Mhm.
Feast. They've got great gluten-free chicken pad Thai. That one's good. I used to go to Wahlburgers. They had gluten-free, like their stuff. They could do their fries and tater
Yeah.
tots and whatnot, and their burgers. Uh, man, yeah. There's a lot of ones I like. There's this place in Pittsburgh that's got grilled cheese sandwiches and like buffalo chicken dip and all this stuff that's gluten-free. It's called the Yard at Market Square. Milwaukee had this awesome Italian place. I went there with MLB.com's Mark Bowman before one of the games.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, there's some good stuff, but I'll tell you, man, sometimes you go to some of these cities, and I don't know if you use the Find Me Gluten Free app.
Yeah. It's
Or
useful.
not. Okay. So for anybody, I guess, listening, who most of these people probably don't know, it's this app you can go to and you can press in you tap your location and it gives you like the gluten-free places people have reviewed, like with options around there. And sometimes people haven't reviewed a certain place or so that place isn't on there, but it gives you good options. Sometimes I get into a city and I'll look at the hotel of like what's around me, and I'm like, dude, I am toast. Like this is gonna be a rough week. Like this is like
There's
Trader
nothing.
Joe's or
Yeah.
Whole Foods and the field. Like yeah, sometimes I'll be like Cleveland was kind of like that, where I'm like, I could be kind of toast. Like
I think
Northport for
Cincinnati's a
the
little
longest
tricky
time.
too.
Yeah, so Cincinnati's got Condado Tacos. That
Okay.
place is pretty good. So
There's
they've
that.
got that. I'm trying to think, man. Like, yeah, Cincinnati, the ballpark. Oh, like I end up eating like an Italian sausage or two every single day. Yeah, Cincinnati doesn't have a ton. Northport and like Inglewood and the surrounding area, like there are a couple spots in Venice, but like man, like
It's
when
tough.
for
Yeah.
spring training, like I think I'd go to Outback Steakhouse probably like 10 times a spring at least because it's like at least I know what to get there. I like steak. I don't mind chains. And I think like being gluten-free has made me like I'm not a fine dining guy. Like I guess I like Fogo de Chao or something like that, but
Mhm.
I don't need to get a little thing on a plate for like $80. Like I would rather just have food I think is good. And so I'm a big chains guy. Like I love Outback Steakhouse. Red Robin's fries are to die for, with some
They do good
ranch on
gluten
them and their
free. Yeah.
seasoning.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they do good too.
Chipotle's
It's
like all gluten free, other than the tortilla. That's a go to if you're traveling and you have to,
uh,
right?
they always the dudes in the beat, O'Brien and Bowman, they always joke with me because I'm either walking in with Chipotle, during the season, or like Jersey Mike's. Jersey Mike's is awesome if you ever had the sub in a tub that they'll do for you there.
Yeah.
That one's awesome where it's basically just like a salad. It's like an antipasto salad basically. There's a bed of lettuce and the meat. Sometimes I'll do that over the bread. And so Northport, for people coming down who need to eat gluten free, there's this place now. I don't. It's been open, but somebody must have just reviewed it because I hadn't heard about it until this year. It's like Joey D's Chicago style pizza. And dude, this place is incredible. Like the cauliflower crust, I'm telling you, it doesn't. I know this is like the trope gluten free people say, like it doesn't even taste, gluten free, but like it doesn't taste gluten free. It's like it
Right.
doesn't taste like cauliflower. Like it's
It's good
somewhat
enough where you
chewy.
bite
It's
into it and then you
good.
ask, is it actually gluten free? That's the whole
Yeah.
thing for people. It's like, wait,
Yeah.
is this actually gluten free? Because it's so good where I don't immediately know it's gluten free.
Yeah. I got it the other day, Uber Eats, and that was my thing. I was like, oh God, like, are we sure this is gluten free? Because like the crust is kind of plump, like it's chewy, like it's good. Like it's good. It doesn't taste like Udis crust. Or Udis or however you say that. Like
Foodies, yeah.
that's good. So that's like one of the ones for anybody coming to Northport that's gluten free. Made in
There you
Italy
go.
does a nice job too here, but man, I could go on and on. If anybody listening has any recs, if you've got any, you know, celiac followers you don't even know about, man, we need them on the show to give us some recs.
There you go. If you have ideas or if you have recommendations of gluten-free places, Justin's on social media, Justin C. Toscano. I'm at Crosby Baseball. If the Braves end up playing at Rickwood Field in Birmingham, I'm going to take you to this great place called Yo Mama's. They do fried chicken, fried seafood, like fried shrimp, fried fish, and all of that, chicken and waffles. But what I love is they have gluten-free and they have regular, and no matter what you order, they give you gluten-free. And people have no idea that it's gluten-free. They're like, oh, this is great. Yeah, that was the gluten free. You didn't even know. It's so good. Every time I go to Birmingham, I always stop at Yo Mama's and get it. It's such good stuff, man. So if the Braves play
Is
at Rickwood Field, I'll take you there.
is that the place? It's like it's on like a little main drag, and it's you walk in and the counter's like right in the front there,
Yep.
and it's
Yep.
this like nice lady, like nice old lady, and they've got gluten-free fried Oreos, right?
Yes. That is the
Dude,
place. You've
this
been, yeah.
place is incredible. Hey, yeah, so I had the chicken tenders. Dude, they were nuts. They were
Yeah.
out of
They're
this
so good.
world. Like they're so good. Like I could have eaten there like 3 times because of just how many different things I wanted to get on that menu. Dude, that one is good. Do you guys have Carrabba's out there in
Yeah.
Alabama? Or is that
Yeah.
okay?
There's scrubs out here. Yeah.
Have you tried the Sicilian soup without the pasta? That soup is good there.
I did not realize that they would just, yeah.
Okay.
I assumed
They
it was one
can
of those that just comes in the bag already made and they can't take the pasta out. They can take the pasta out. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, they don't yeah, I don't think I think they make just the soup and put the noodles in it from somewhere else. Cause I yeah, because I've
Okay.
I've had that there. Um Man, yeah, I love in Atlanta, To Be Whole Bakery is awesome.
Right.
Shout out them. Shout out Village Burger if anybody's in Atlanta and has ever been there. They do a great job.
If Antico
Shoot, dude,
Pizza
Yo
would make a
Mama's.
gluten-free
Oh,
version, I would die happy. That's the one thing that I miss. I've been gluten-free since 2015. That's the one
y-
thing that I just legitimately like. If I was gonna die, that would be the meal I would eat before I die is an Antico Pizza. I miss it so
yeah.
much.
I think what's your favorite like everybody always asks, like, what do you miss? Like what's in terms of fast food, what's your favorite? Because mine is Taco Bell. I would kill to have like a 12 pack, and you could easily make those tacos gluten free, but
Yeah,
I would kill it's something in the seasoning, like a lot of packaged taco seasoning as,
Taco
binders in the
Bell's the
form of
one for
wheat.
me too. Yeah,
Yeah,
Crunchwrap
dude, Taco
Supreme.
Bell.
I'd get a
Oh,
Crunchwrap Supreme, a steak quesadilla, and a cheese roll up. Like that was my order every time. And I can't recreate the quesadilla at home, no matter what I try to do. There's something about just the weird combination of meat and seasoning and cheese, and
yeah.
that's the one that I miss is Taco Bell. And there's
I
one like 5 minutes from my
yeah.
house too. I hate it. They just opened it, and I
Oh,
hate that. I've not had it in
I
a decade.
used to wow, I used to get the 12 pack of tacos and just down those. I also wish I dude, there's like some you see the medicine trials and whatnot.
Mhm.
I I need this to be cured eventually because I need McDonald's again like I need air to breathe. Like I know it's kind of gross, but it's like it's
Yeah,
good.
it's
And
cheap.
then
Or it
yeah, and
was at
like dude,
least.
like
Yeah.
delivery and fast food pizza I used to love. So we were in Detroit, funny story. And the first game gets banged.
Right.
So if you remember that series, and there
Mhm.
was a doubleheader on that final day. Very long day. Had to move my flight to the next day. Was not very happy about that because it was only a 3-day trip, as was. So we were gonna get to go home after that Wednesday game. And I'm just like starving, man. Like that during that doubleheader, I'm just starving. And because the Illich family or like Detroit is like Little Caesars, they bring in a bunch of pizza to Tigers game, like to Tigers the press box, Little
Yeah.
Caesars. And you're looking at somebody who lived 5 minutes from one growing up in San Diego. The crazy bread, the cheesy bread, the $5 hot and ready's. Like I am a Little Caesars guy. Like I love Pizza Hut too. I loved Domino's. I loved Papa John's. But like I walked past that Little Caesars and I was like, man, like I'm just this is rough. It was a struggle. It was a struggle. But then you get to San Francisco and that one,
All the food's
like,
there.
the nice ladies and in center field make that flat. I don't even know what they put in that thing or what they put on it. It's incredible.
I love that we did 20 minutes on gluten-free food. There's going to
Yeah.
be like 20 Braves fans left in this. I love
Oh
this so
yeah.
much. Justin,
Yeah.
thanks for coming on. Thanks for the vibes and the info from Northport. I know that Braves Report is currently on hiatus while the AJC
Oh yeah.
figures that out. But in the meantime, all the rest of your stuff, where can folks go to get every single bit of Braves news that you have?
AJC.com, baby, /sports, maybe /Braves. I don't know how URLs work. Social media, Justin C. Toscano on Blue Sky and Twitter. I try to post on both, like just try to mirror it because I know there's some people on one or some people on the other, not
Mhm.
one. But uh, you know how it is, man. Sometimes you forget when you're doing, you're doing so much. So I try to post, yeah, those on social media, but the website too. Subscribe, follow, whatever. And yeah, man, thanks for having me. And thank you for the what, 2 people, 10 people who listen to our gluten-free, just us go on and on and on as long about that as we did Braves
Listen, there are
baseball.
probably dozens of us, and we just don't know it. All
Ah,
right.
I know, I know.
All right, folks, barring some sort of major signing or trade, we're back with you on Monday. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.